Urgent Home reaction. This is Texas Rangers raid Cartel Island on border with Mexico. This was a task and purpose. Whoa, I haven't seen a cartel video, but I've guessed task and purpose many of them. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, so this I'm obviously based on a lot of TV shows and shit. I don't know. I'm guessing like the hotspot is obviously like crossing U.S. border because that's where the money is. I guess that's where they want to go. I'm guessing. I don't know. But where is like epicenter of cartels? What is that? I'm pretty sure I heard of some names. I forgot the name of the countries, but there's certain like Southern American or countries or Central Americans. I don't know. Yeah. So Texas Rangers. Is there an arm of some federal branch or something? Or is that a local police? What is that? Never heard of that. Texas Rangers. I don't know. Is that local police? I don't. Yeah. So this is apparently they work together with some military organization. I don't know. It's gonna be an interesting video. Let's just say, yeah. But task and purpose, makes a lot of like this update of what is happening with cartel and things, which is like really good. All the people like channels like this talks about usually military related things, but they don't talk about this, right? They talk about like anti-terrorism and geopolitical at larger scale, but like organized crimes, cartels, they don't talk about that. I like how Task and Purpose covers that. And apparently his videos on cartels gets more views than any other video. This video is just like 3 days old and it's already 3 million views. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Remember, if you like my reaction, don't forget to subscribe so I know which type of videos to react to more, if I should, make more cartel videos from this channel or not. Comment down if you want to do any specific reaction. And yeah, that's what it is.
Island, located right on the Texas border with Mexico. Local law enforcement called it the single most dangerous point in the region. For years, cartel gunmen have used it to traffic illicit substances, weapons, and people. Just as the sun was rising on October 9th, 2023, dozens of Texas Rangers locked and loaded their M4s, donned their body armor, then jumped into a convoy of ATVs. Then they pushed south into the island. 3 bomb squad teams were standing by, prepared to remove any explosives the Rangers might find. This is because the poor visibility in the dense foliage on the island has led to it becoming a stash site for drugs, duffel bags filled with assault rifles, and even improvised explosive devices. This mission to retake the island from the cartel is probably one of the strangest in recent memory, and it sounds like it's straight out of a badass Chuck Norris fever dream. But Texas officers weren't working alone. They worked
like how the shit goes down. I'll be surprised if Chuck Norris was there, I guess, because apparently I forgot who's the actor who's like an actual policeman. Steven Seagal, right? He's an actual police. I mean, registered police. There's a chance he might stop you on a road or some shit. So I don't know.
in cooperation with Mexican federales, who established a security zone on the far side of the border. Teamwork makes the dream work. The primary goal was to seize a series of small structures on the island. The building had actually been marked with Gulf cartel markings using spray paint. This recent surveillance footage from the island showed armed cartel patrols crossing into the United States, as well as warehouses on the far side of the river marked with cartel territory symbols, because corporate branding is more important than hiding your illegal operations, apparently. They were already covered in bullet holes from previous firefights between rival gangs. The invading officers were already briefed on the location of these buildings because from a strategic point of view, they were located.
I mean, it's said Cartel Island, obviously not in the United States, outside of it, and where they're probably not going to be fearful of any law enforcement there, because if there is any law enforcement, it's probably they're like afraid of the cartel or in pocket of cartel or whatever. Both of them probably is afraid, and so they are in the pocket or something. So they're not going to be afraid of. So of course there's going to be like open markings and things. If they were working in like inside the United States, they wouldn't be bold enough to do that. I don't know.
At the island's highest elevation point. This made them perfect spots for sniper nests that had been used in the past. Even though the officers were prepared for a direct fight, they had been operating under incredibly strict rules of engagement. Rules of engagement, or ROE, are basically a set of guidelines that define what you can legally shoot at and not shoot at. The officers were previously briefed that accidentally firing at a friendly Mexican soldier could spark an international geopolitical incident. According to Texas officials, Any return fire from Americans needed to be in strict self-defense, otherwise
Now listen to me, Texas Rangers. I'm gonna say this once simply so you understand it. Not all Spanish Mexican looking people are cartels. Like what you talking about? Yeah, it's true. I know it's hard for you to understand, but it's true. I'm joking here, obviously, but yeah, I mean, they can see that like, okay, this could be a real big issue. I'm guessing all the soldiers around the world probably has some sort of guidelines to go by, right? Like this, because we just sit here and think about open conflicts. That's it. Like, oh, open conflict, how are they going to shoot at it? But soldiers usually has to like worry about things like this, not accidentally doing something that could spark a major issue. And it could, right? Like right now, like India, China, skirmishes are happening. There are lots of instructions are probably going there, like don't mistakenly shoot somebody because that's it. That then we are at war.
it would carry a possibility of being extradited and potentially prosecuted by the Mexican government. To get the best possible picture out of what they were walking into, Texas authorities sent in drones as reconnaissance, which scouted for any armed
Amazon
cartel
drones? Come
personnel
on, man, you
on
can
the
do better.
island. These assets also searched for
What?
potential IEDs and traps. The reason this has become a matter of international tomfoolery is because the island only formed in 1926 after a channel of the Rio Grande River cut it off from the mainland. Since then, it's existed in a weird legal middle ground of international boundaries. It's a literal middle ground if you think about it. It's been seen as a kind of no man's land, a purgatory for many years, because both the United States and Mexico forgot who owned the island. It wasn't until 1976 that the United States officially claimed it as part of American territory. Since then, it's been under private ownership, occasionally being used by Mexican cattle farmers, but the legal ambiguity of the island meant law enforcement typically avoided it on both sides. This was done to prevent any international issue because of where it sat on the border. Across the Rio Grande River is the Mexican state of Tamaulipas, which has the honor of holding the highest danger classification given by the United States Department of State. This is due to the high levels of crime and kidnapping here. The island and the area surrounding it has regularly seen gunfights as the two cartels tried to gain control of the crossing point. Recently, everyone from Border Patrol agents to local citizens have been targets of deadly shootings here. Due to the unclear ownership of the island, cartel members became emboldened, realizing that they essentially had immunity on the island. They could run there and shout, "Home base, you can't touch me." This has led to several firefights because in November 2016, cartel members on the island fired on Texas Department of Public Safety agents who were surveilling these cartels. They even wounded one of the officers in the firefight. A few years later, in 2019,
Wait a minute. These people like, okay, wait a minute. United States is not like claiming this. Mexico's not claiming it. We are gonna take it. Okay, we are gonna fight with other cartels to get territory. Okay, I understand that. But let's shoot at one of the like US agencies like Texas Rangers. I'm sure that's not going to cause issue. US is not known to retaliate in any way, shape or form. They're just going to let go of it because they're afraid of the cartel. Of course, that's going to happen. No way they have like enough surplus money that they can just launch an operation just out of pride and ego. This is, of course, this was going to happen. I think like somebody just shot at it and then they realize it's probably like Texas Rangers and they didn't even know it, right? Somebody told me, "You idiot, you just shot at one of the US soldiers or US like Texas Rangers or something. This is gonna cause problem," and there you go.
Patrol agents took small arms fire from an automatic weapon that fired at least 50 shots at the patrol boat on the Rio Grande. All of this happened right near the site where the infamous incident happened, where American tourists were shot in the crossfire of a cartel firefight in 2023. This isn't even to touch on the fact that bodies are frequently found here and police are often called to respond.
Why are
to
American
reports of
tourists
shots
there
fired.
though? You don't have any other place to go?
Claim all these explosions and gunfires were likely done as an intimidation tactic to deter American incursions onto the island. Mike Salinas is a 30-year-old veteran of the U.S. Border Patrol, and he explained that despite the island being legally part of Texas, the general theme was, let's not get on there and find out, because the optics of the whole thing might open up a big old Pandora's box of holy moly. This is because local governments on both the United States and Mexican side largely stay away from this island, possibly due to its dubious territorial status. But from the cartel's perspective, the geography and location made it an obvious, perfect choice for smuggling and gun running. The island sits squarely between the territories of two major cartel groups operating in northern Mexico. You got the Gulf Cartel and the Cartel del Norte, or CDN. Both of these have a long rap sheet of crimes that spill over into the United States, using extreme violence to gain and protect their criminal territory. Part of the reason this is such a hot spot is because of the geography of this area. There's 160 acres of densely wooded island that provide cover and concealment for the cartels. It's also a pretty remote location, with the closest town having a population of only around 180 people. But this has remained an issue for decades. All of these factors combined left Fronton Island an even more exposed target for cartels to operate. Geographically, it sits at a lower point on the Rio Grande, with shallow crossings that make it easier to cross. Other parts of the Rio Grande are much more dangerous to cross at. We've seen recent reports of people drowning attempting to get through. Leading up to the island from the south are paved roads and pathways that feed directly to the crossing areas, helping facilitate cartel movement. Fronton Island reaches a high point of 177 feet in elevation. What that means is, from a tactical point of view, is that it blocks any view or noise from Mexican crossing points and serves as an excellent lookout point into the United States, allowing you to monitor any border patrol activity. A typical strategy observed was that the cartel lookouts would use the island to scout for any American patrols in the area. Once the coast was clear, draw.
See, US should just use this as an excuse, like, okay, we claim this island, we get it, like all the international backlash, this and that, but it's like anti-cartel, anti-gang thing, we have to do it. So, we're gonna put our border patrol soldiers here and take this island or something. I don't know. I understand like that what the fear is, right? Because Mexico can just basically claim like, okay, US just illegally took this island. We didn't say it's not ours, and US can say it's not yours either. But there's like US is the big dog trying to strong arm, trying. It's like being imperialistic or whatever, right? What China is doing, US is doing it too. They could basically say that international stage, so they're trying to avoid it.
Drugs, guns, and people would then be pushed across the river. To further complicate the legal quandary here, often the shootings by the cartel members originated from the Mexican side of the border into the United States. This made them impossible to investigate or prosecute by American law enforcement. U.S. police successfully seized Fronton Island by force without incident. Officers even planted a Texas flag on the island. But the occupation by the police was only the first stage of a much larger plan. The fight may have only just begun, because drone footage captured at least 10 cartel members patrolling through the same stretch of border only a month after the raid. Then, ground-level cameras captured even more armed foot soldiers here. The end goal of the island was to clear it completely, and they started by clearing it of vegetation and cut off all potential access from Mexico. The Texas Department of Public Safety, who headed the operation, made the all clear, which green-lighted National Guard horizontal construction troops from the 176th Engineer Brigade to bring in their heavy equipment. They laid down over 1.5 miles of razor wire to stop cartel freedom of movement here. They immediately started stripping Fronton Island of the foliage, ripping up trees, and removing brush. And there are now regular patrols by National Guard units under Operation Lone Star. Despite the regular breaches across the river, U.S. Border Patrol has been unable to effectively police the area, especially in recent years. This is partly because the migration crisis that started around 2021 has pulled a majority of Border Patrol agents to more densely populated areas to deal with massive migration crowds. So in 2023, 2.5 million encounters of migrants, both legal and illegal, were recorded. Though this number doesn't include those that successfully entered into the United States without being apprehended or noticed by Border Patrol. This has created a security and humanitarian crisis at the border. Migrants attempting to enter the United States were often used as mules for carrying contraband and escorted across the border under armed guard by members of the cartel. These people were charged as much as $8,000 to safely cross. This was compounded by the coronavirus outbreak in 2020 and violent political outbreaks across South America and the Caribbean. People were seeking to escape poverty.
You see, this cartels is the reason why people like Trump and Trump supporters basically hate any even mention of immigrants, because they basically sees this, right? So cartels and organized gangs and organized crime is the center of all of this, right? So I don't know, Just like how, like US has policies against terrorists. I'm not saying like put cartels at a terrorist list. Create a special area or a special list for cartels. We would treat them in that way rather than just giving them like, like local police or Texas Rangers, or like, create a proper, federal organization that deals with cartels and take them seriously. Make something like, make, treaties and deals with something like Mexico, something where they just cooperate without any issues, right? If cartel is involved, all the other, like in this case, they didn't want to cause issues with Mexico because of this island, right? They should create some kind of like a talk or some kind of like deal where, everything sets aside if it's cartels involved, right? The first priority should be like, focusing on cartels, something like that, because everything's center always comes to cartels. All the fear of immigration, people say like, oh, immigrants comes and take jobs in this. I don't think that's that strong, because lots of study has happened, like whenever immigrants come to US, usually jobs that they take is like common, Americans don't want to take. That's usually 90% of that, that's the case. And a lot of times when I hear of this right wingers, Trump supporters, where they hate the immigrant thing, is because they think about the cartel and drugs and things, that these are the people who mule and everything, right? So they should make cartels a priority, the US government and agencies. All the problems would go away, right? They're treating the same as like some organized crime, but no, that is a real issue, isn't it?
And trying to find new opportunities in the United States. But adding to this was President Biden's expansion of the temporary protected status eligibility for those crossing the border, as well as a loosening of Title 42 expulsions. In short, all this meant was that the risk of entering the United States illegally had a lower threat of immediate deportation. The early morning raid was actually part of a much larger strategy across the border aimed at curtailing cartel activity. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has recently ordered the National Guard and police force to take steps that conflict with orders of the national level given by President Biden. We recently saw Texas National Guard members ordered to take over
What?
curtailing cartel activity. Texas Governor Greg Abbott has recently ordered the National Guard and police force to take steps that conflict with orders of the national.
Gonna signals potential defiance of Supreme Court. I don't think you can do that. I mean, you can defy like, I know in US like states are their own thing, they do things, but when it comes to Supreme Courts, I'm pretty sure you can't defy Supreme Court. There will be issues. Like you can defy federal government, right? In a way, and even then it's like in the modern US, a lot of the old style of things are kind of not there. Years ago, like states could be their own thing and can defy federal government, but that's becoming smaller and smaller. Federal government is like the big thing, right? Federal government does make sure like certain things states can do by themselves so they don't get angry, but main things federal governments always have like power over everything. But when it comes to Supreme Court definitely has power over everything. So I don't think they can do it. I'm pretty sure they found some loophole there that worked, which I'm pretty sure Supreme Court one day is just gonna like remove it or something, because I'm pretty sure Supreme Court is the power. You can't defy Supreme Court. That's how it works.
Level given by President Biden. We recently saw Texas National Guard members ordered to take over Shelby Park in a similar incident where there was a belief that the border was not being protected at the national level. American efforts of battling the influx of cartel activity over the border has recently been expanded. By 2021, illegal border crossings into Texas had risen 278.
These wires, do they work? Can the cartels just come with like those clippers and just cut it off or some shit? How is this gonna work? Like, I don't know. It's implied during war times. Like, if you just come here and try to cut things, there's a chance the soldiers can see you while you're cutting and shoot you down because it's war times. Any type of like slowing of movement is going to be issue. But that's not the case here. They're trying to patrol it. Not like it's not a war zone. So can't just cut it and just like when nobody's seeing it, just get in or something. I don't know.
8% versus the previous year. And so the state launched Operation Lone Star in response. This was a comprehensive effort which included multiple state agencies and thousands of Army National Guard soldiers deployed along the border. To date, this has led to nearly 500,000 apprehensions at the border. However, cartel violence along the border has only increased, prompting more efforts to stop it. The state of Texas has received the brunt of cartel violence, and for obvious reasons. Its over 1,200-mile border with Mexico creates a security and humanitarian nightmare. The topography along the stretch varies significantly, from deserts to mountains, rivers.
And I'm pretty sure Texas, right? Texas is becoming richer and richer nowadays, right? I'm pretty sure I heard of something like that. Like more rich people are going to the Texas now. Texas is like giving more leeway of taxes to a lot of people, to businesses, and in turn it's like GDP is increasing or something, which is like something cartels would see it as opportunity even more, so it become even more worse. People trying to cross it, cartels trying to do like drug business there, because people are richer, they can pay for drugs. I guess that's how it goes. I don't know.
River valleys and plains, making it difficult to guard and easy to exploit by cartels.
Is that a wall?
Border agents are forced to
What?
difficult to guard.
This is like, I'm gonna say this is Rio Grande, and this is the wall between. I'm pretty sure I remember seeing like Trump talk about slatted walls. This like this, right? This is the one, right?
And easy to exploit by cartels. Border agents are forced to spread resources in on assets that assist them in traversing the area, like ATVs, trucks, boats, and even horses. This is done at the cost of using more personnel and surveillance methods. Despite this, some areas of the border are still simply impassable on the American side. This adds another difficult aspect to the situation, because it means there's an international and cross-border activity that the U.S. has little to no control over. Many areas will have large population centers on the Mexican side of the border and little to no infrastructure on the American side, making them ideal places for launching points into the U.S. Despite federal loosening of border crossing restrictions, Texas State Governor Greg Abbott has continuously pushed for increased patrolling and funding towards the issue, Fronton Island being a primary target in this effort. Though executed by law enforcement, the operation to seize the crossing was conducted like a military operation. Fronton Island is not an isolated objective. Texas Department of Public Safety acknowledges that there's a very strong possibility that it's only part of a prolonged island-hopping campaign. Fronton Island wasn't even the first island to be seized by Texas law enforcement. Two small islands approximately 90 miles to the northwest, near Eagle Pass, Texas, were seized near the official border crossing.
Damn, this is some insane shit. Really, Texas Rangers not being soldiers, they're doing soldiers level of shit, right? By literally going outside and trying to take over places, doing these operations. Like, who else does that besides soldiers, right? At basically this level. I'm guessing Texas Rangers is like Border Patrol's wing or something, specifically there to do shit like this, I'm guessing. I don't know.
Crossing in order to help mitigate illegal border crossings. As Texas continues to ramp up its own efforts to curb the border crisis, legal issues between state and federal governments continue to arise. While working towards the same goal, state law enforcement and federal border control have recently begun to clash over permissions and authorities. Eagle Pass, where the first two islands were seized, is now the grounds of a political standoff between President Joe Biden and Texas Governor Greg Abbott. A recent seizure of a public park by National Guard soldiers sparked controversy after they denied access of the area to Border Patrol agents. Ultimately, this comes down to differences in migration prosecution at the state and federal levels. The U.S. Supreme Court...
That's some weird shit, man. Look, I understand the element of it. Understand even the need of it. How basically states can have this level of power. But isn't this like a international nightmare? People are like, come on, man, you don't even have power of your own fucking country. Like, federal government's not having power over their own country is kind of like serious things. I'm United States government. These are my national, border patrol, whatever. By the way, you can't go to Texas because that's not part of US. It's like, I don't know. I understand the element of it, but still it's weird.
Court is being tied into the situation regarding the razor wire established around the park, which Border Patrol agents were seeking to cut through in order to process immigrants already across the border. Whether or not this issue will be resolved soon will likely define if future island operations will be able to take place, and what kind of legal parameters will be set. Fronton Island could be the last or one of many occupations. One thing is for certain though, no one is going to miss these cartel gang members. For updates on this story, follow.
Yeah. Obviously, like Texas being a Republican state, obviously the governor as well. Biden being left winger, and so is like federal government doing the. We don't want no immigrants. They're like, wait a minute, we have to process this. Yeah, but we don't want no immigrants. A literal clash between two. Yeah, I don't know. I'm guessing whoever like made this like laws and rules about like where this federal power comes from, where the state power comes from, probably left things like gray. Like, okay, maybe there will be no instances where we have to find out who has more power, but they didn't see the current time where like left is so left, right is so right. They're basically opposition of each other at this point. I'll be surprised if like there is a massive civil war in the future. And I'm not talking about civil war as in like civil war that happened in US long ago. Some form of civil war that can be felt, but still going to be, it's not going to cause that much of friction, but it can be felt. Like, what the fuck? This is insane. I don't know. To me, it feels like, look, understand like there are laws in US where a state can deny federal government. A Supreme Court is not just some federal government. It's like the center of law, right? I mean, when it comes to law, you don't say this is state, this is federal, right? State courts fall under Supreme Court, right? I'm pretty sure that's the case. You can't deny Supreme Court. You can deny everything. You can't deny Supreme Court. That's how it goes with all democracies around the world, not just US. I don't know. This is just weird. I'm pretty sure there was some loopholes that they find out. Alright, well, that was Texas Rangers raid Cartel Island on border with Mexico. This is some insane shit, man. And there are many videos he made about like war against cartels and things like that. Yeah, has this been intensifying recently, or this is just a video I'm checking out now? I don't know. But yeah, right. Well, if you like my reason, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.